Date with a Debut is recorded and produced on Awabakal Country. Always was, always will be, Aboriginal land.
This book tries to play off of the elements of Darwin. It's surrounded by such a vast landscape. People really do go missing, that we create these legends. We make up stories because we want a level of control, which we don't have. And we all can remember a story where somebody has gone missing, a family or a single person has just never returned and will never return. That lives with us.
Welcome to Date with a Debut, a podcast about debut authors, their incredible books, and their journeys to publication. If you are looking for a new author to discover or writing inspiration for your own story and you don't know where to start, this is the place to be. I'm Nick Wasiliev, host of the show, and I'm delighted to welcome another debut author in today's episode. You can find any books mentioned in today's podcast down in the description. We will discuss mild spoilers ahead, so I recommend you grab yourself a copy of the book now, or at least very soon. Wherever you are listening, thank you for listening with us and supporting the Australian book industry, and if you enjoy the show, hit us with a review, a rating, or a thumbs up wherever you get your podcasts. Lastly, this episode is brought to you by Podpixels, the ultimate storytelling tool for passionate podcasters. More on them later in the show. Hey everybody, it's Date with a Debut time. Nick Wasiliev here on beautiful Awabakal Country, and for today's episode, we dive into a terrifying, haunting thriller filled with history, legends, ghosts, and everything else in one of Australia's most fascinating landscapes. I'd even qualify this as a horror story in some elements. For today, I chat with former Australian Navy sailor turned psychological thriller writer Jane R. Miles. Her debut, Stay Buried, is published by HQ, an imprint of HarperCollins. And at the time of us talking, we're actually quite a way out from when the book comes out. But for everyone listening here, this book will be out in the world right now. And if it is, you can go and get it down in the description box. You can check it out at your local bookstore. Check it out at your local library, wherever it is. Check it out online. Wherever it is, you can get it. This book and discussion, I will say, as a preference, given the type of book, does come with a small trigger warning. This is a psychological thriller. It comes with some intense themes, some violence, which we will discuss in part. Joining me all the way from the Netherlands, Jane, it is such a privilege to have you on Date with a Debut, and a very good morning.
Morning, afternoon. It's great to be here. Finally putting a face to the voice.
Oh, you're too kind. I know you and I have been chatting for quite a while about you getting on the show, and it's a delight to finally have you on and talk about this amazing book. But before we begin, I love to ask and do a deep dive into the person themselves. And you've had an interesting life. You've traveled the world. You used to be in the Royal Australian Navy, worked in top secret roles with the Department of Defence, which sounds very, very top secret, and I shouldn't ask any further questions. Now you are a writer, a psychological thriller writer. So softball opener, I love that all of those have there's all that military background, and then out of nowhere you've suddenly dived into the world of psychological thrillers. Where has writing sat in the head of Jane to lead to this moment?
Yeah, softball opener. Easy. I think writing has always been something I've done as journaling, predominantly reading more often from a very young age. But I think when you grow up kind of running or surviving, it's a little bit difficult to stop and figure out that thing that you want to do. And so I spent a lot of time trying to work out exactly what it is that I've wanted to do. And I've tried many different things. And then I think it was during the pandemic, the very first week of the pandemic, March 2020 in Melbourne. And I had 8 hours of sleep every night for that whole week. And that was the first time in years that I'd had that much sleep. And it was that very same week that I started writing a novel. And I think it was just that time to stop that allowed me to realize that there is this thing that I want to do. I know it sounds crazy and kind of, it should have occurred earlier, but when you keep falling forwards, which I think happens to a lot of people, you get into a profession at a very young age, and then you keep doing the same similar things. You don't really have time to ask, and then you get higher up the ladder, and you have more and more time is devoted to that one thing. There's very little left of time to ask yourself questions. So although I was always writing my own writing and reading, it wasn't until the pandemic that it really, I actually had time to reflect, which is maybe I was reflecting on myself, and then it came out in the form of a novel. We'll get into that.
Well, I will say, like, hearing this story, I'm not too surprised, because this has often been the challenge that holds so many writers back from actually wanting to get that book out there, because life is happening in the day to day. It can often be something that it's completely driven by your determination, and it's not something that you have a deadline necessarily to, unless you can be very, very disciplined with yourself and own deadlines. But then again, it's something that you set yourself, which can mean that it's not something where you have a deadline with work where you have to get something done in this time. It's all within your own time, and particularly when you don't know what the outcome is. Could it get published? Could it not? It's not. I think I'm not surprised to hear, and I'm also so glad that you got 8 hours sleep for a whole week, which kind of led to this sudden moment where it sort of switched for you. So I'm not surprised to hear that at all.
Yeah, it's. I think the confidence too. I think I moved out of home at 18, and I joined the Navy at 20, and I think you keep moving, trying to get by. And I think you get really good at your job, and you equate being good at your job at liking your job, or that they go in hand, but it's not the same thing. And I think it's not until you get a bit older that you realize that, and that you can have the financial freedom to take that breath as well.
Particularly, we'll talk about the actual. See, it's great that you've kind of got to this point. It's got that you now have the ability to be able to do that and write this book. And I'd also imagine, writing, the actual process of getting to this point of getting published, I can imagine must have been a really interesting one, because you've written this thriller, but often because thrillers are popular, but also if it particularly verges on much deeper, darker subject matter as well. You have to often really be very targeted with the publishers that you approach in those particular regards. How did the actual process of getting signed to HQ kind of come about? What was the journey to publication like once you finally had committed yourself, finished that first draft?
First draft, second draft, third draft, fourth draft.
I should have prefaced that. I'm sorry. Final manuscript done. If it's ever done.
The end, send to the world, and then all the offers came in. Yes.
It sounds so romantic, doesn't it? God.
Yes. No, it didn't happen like that. It actually was incredible luck, which is, I think, most people's story as well. It's hard work and luck, and I think about 50% of both. And I had just moved to the Netherlands after the pandemic in 2022, and I was between jobs. I didn't have a job. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to go and do a writer's retreat. And I went across to Lumbank in Avon in West Yorkshire, and I did a week-long Gothic retreat there. And it was incredible, with a bunch of fantastic women. One of the guest speakers was a my agent, it would turn out later on, Jenny, and she heard my pitch, and then said send it to me, but it wasn't ready yet, so I waited, and then she chased me, which was a feather in the cap, and I sent it to her, and we signed within, I think, 2 days or something. But that was the easy part of the story, and then we went out to submission, which took a lot longer. So yeah, when you have an easy part, there's a harder part to follow, I think, or a hard part and easy part. So yeah, it's I don't think it's even when you get a publishing deal, you're always looking for that next bit of security as well. So yeah, it was just luck, the right time, the right place, and just being brave, I guess.
I will say, like, it does make me laugh that, of course, there's always a hard part. It does always make me laugh when I see it, like, interpreted in television or whatever. And this book came out and it was a massive success and it was blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, it always ignores how bloody hard it is to actually get published and how much work it is. I think that is a massive tip of approval, tip of the hat in terms of actually you had an agent that chased you, which is amazing, because I know, for a fact, agents, they're often so time poor. They're getting hundreds of manuscripts pitched to them. Like, I have nothing, having seen the other side of it in some sense, you really get a sense of how difficult their job is, because they're trying to find those books. They want to be able to do as many as they can, but you only have so many that you can say yes to. So for someone to actually chase you, I think that's
and she's an amazing agent as well. Like, I really, there's so much luck. But I guess very happy.
It's a good question, actually, I want to ask here, because she obviously saw something in this book, and there is something, like, writing a good thriller is hard. It's really, really hard, because you have a lot of build up. There's so many elements that you have to work with. If thrillers are going to be your genre going forward, sign me up, because we're going to do deep dive down into this rabbit hole of metaphorical and literal rabbit hole of this book in a second. But the one thing I really loved is I think I can understand why your agent chased you, is because the craft of this book is fantastic. We're jumping back and forth between two timelines, elements intertwined with each other that become critically important. In your opinion, what's the trick to writing a good thriller? So easy.
You tell me, and I will do that next time. I think the only way to write any book is to write the book that you like to read, I think. And that sounds like a really, not helpful answer, but I like to read books that slap you in the face straight away, that pull you in, that make you, chain you to the chair. And I want to be pretty much driven by madmen, and the only anchor is the emotional truth of the novel. And I want there to be everything on the table, from alien abduction to psychosis. Like, I don't want to know where this is going to end, how it's going to end, what the measure of success is, if it's going to be happy, sad, whatever. And that's what I like about a thriller, is especially a psychological thriller, is that you have no idea where it's going, and it could go anywhere. And by the time you get to the end, it feels inevitable and it feels earned. But my preference is always a happy, sad ending. So I think of Mike Flanagan's series like Bly Manor and his adaptation of Hill House. They end with a sad ending, but it's also the cost. So the protagonist always has to pay a cost, and when the cost is it's paid, the rest of the world turns back to normal. But there's somebody that has to be locked back up in the house or return to the lake. Somebody has to pay, and I like that, because it's a not everything in life is tied up with a bow. Sometimes things happen for a reason, or not for a reason, but there's now I'm just babbling, but
no, you're giving the reason why I love psychological thrillers. It's one of my favorite genres, and yes, I want to be smacked in the face as well. I want something that will hold me. It's a great line from Margaret Atwood, I think, and the entire purpose of writing a good novel is hold my attention. And I think it's one of the best possible genres that can do that. Ad break time. Stop the podcast Hey everyone, just thought I'd stop to let you know that today's episode is sponsored by Podpixels, the Trent Dalton of professional podcast platforms. Question, do you have a desire for a great podcast? How are you going to build it? What about the design work? Won't it cost a fortune? Fear not, for Podpixels is a simple, done-for-you website service built specifically for podcasts. They are here to deliver that professional look to your podcast to make it easier for listeners to find your show, and all for one great monthly price. From hobbyists to pros, Podpixels has you covered. Their team provides domains, website hosting, backup, security, and support, handling the full setup and making sure that your show is up to date and allowing you to focus on what you do best, podcast. With Podpixels, you can achieve your full podcasting vision. They are the ultimate one-stop solution for anyone looking to build an online home for their podcast. Check them out below in the show notes and tell them that Nick from Date with the Day Booze sent you. Thank you, Podpixels, for sponsoring the show. You are going to hold our attention with this amazing book that we're about to dive deep into, which is, of course, Stay Buried. For everyone who is online, the cover is now up on the screen. Beautiful cover, by the way. I've got the ARC, which also I think is actually quite a pretty cover too. But we're now at the part where you deliver us a 1-minute pitch for Stay Buried. I am in the lift. I am going down into a bunker. And so instead of going up, what is Stay Buried about? Say something that makes me terrified to go down.
Well, to do this, you have to assume a voice. So I will... It's late Christmas Eve, 1974, and Cyclone Tracy, one of the most deadliest natural disasters in Australia's history, makes landfall in Darwin. Meanwhile, in a remote outback camp, 4 girls seek shelter in the only structure for miles around. There, they become trapped. 30 years later, one returns, but she's very different now. Who is she, and what happened to the others? Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, dang! Yes! Oh my god! Complete with voice. Yes, please. Thank you. Amazing pitch. And oh my god. As mentioned, I love psychological thrillers. I love intense subjects and stories. And the thing I want to commend about you is the dread of this book. It feels, on one side, we have the events at this camp. We have Lisa Marie, Brenda, Angie, Miranda, Sally, who have this terrifying dread around them, being stuck in this bunker, the tension, the isolation. They're losing time. They're losing sanity. And it creates such a sense of unease for the reader that you're terrified of when it's going to snap. And then on the other side, we have Vaughn, who, 30 years later, we're trying to find out why these women were in such a place of isolation for so long. And more to the point, why were they there in the first place? Which is such an interesting part that hangs over this story. This is a book about families, about isolation. There's a ghost element to it as well, which is both comforting, but also incredibly unsettling. But ultimately, I think if you can try and summarize this book, it's about the human power of survival. It is about truth in many forms, and also whether expressing it can make things better and heal or not. There's a great quote from the end of the book, which I have here and I will read, but I'm not going to say who said it. We will talk about it in the spoiler-filled episode coming later, but I'm not going to say who said it. And this line is, "You don't live as long as I do and not understand that sometimes the truth should stay buried." Talk to me about exploring survival and exploring truth in this amazing book, because this is fantastic. It's great.
There's 2 timelines and 2 points of view characters, as you mentioned. And I thought it was really important at the time. Originally, I was going to write just the bunker, but the modern day timeline of 2004 really is the breath of air. So it's you can't spend that long in a bunker without needing that escape, but also to further the story along so it doesn't feel as if you're whiplashing between the two, that it's almost chronological in the delivery of information. But the truth of the story, that Von herself, she is stuck in place. She can't move on. She's successful, but she's not happy. And I think that she's stuck in this myth of closure, where she thinks that she needs this vital piece of information about what happened to her mother in order to move on, or in order to have a life. Whereas, the truth of knowing that her mother never would have left her, if she could have come back wherever she went, she would have done. That has always been inside of Von. Whereas Lisa Marie has a very different arc. She wants to be taken seriously. She's 9 years old, and that's her biggest worry, is to be taken seriously. But by the end of it, she's got to make a choice between, at every point, she makes a decision based on her humanity, really, and what she's dooming her humanity to. And it asks the question of, what's the cost of survival? Is it to become the monster? Do you risk losing your humanity? And is there a cost to survival? And is it worth that cost? Which I think at the end of the novel, you would ask yourself that same question and wonder if you would have done the same.
I mean, we'll touch on Von and Lisa Marie in a second, but there is one thing that I also want to kind of highlight before we do, and that is your use of place, which is particularly important in both of the timelines. I'm so glad that we weren't just in the bunker the whole time. You needed the contrast beautifully to kind of really up the dread, because it would have, and I don't think I haven't during this podcast. I've never actually been to a book which is now based in Darwin, and I'm so glad that I now finally have one, because Darwin holds a very special place in Australian history. Not many cities have been destroyed 4 times and built from the ashes, and setting this during Cyclone Tracy, which holds such a unique place in the Australian context, viewed in seen as a kind of this element of the spirit of the nation coming against adversity. There's even, there's a legends element to it. Definitely felt some of those things where you kind of talked about Darwin a little bit. I found, I was up there in May 2022. Funnily enough, I was going there with my mum, and she picked up COVID. That was the first time she got COVID in Darwin, and I found myself stuck up there for a week while she recovered. And I got the chance to explore the city just impromptu. The history. There's an amazing museum and art gallery up there which has a good exhibition on Tracy. The military museum. There's hidden bunkers all around the city. It's humid. It's buzzing. There's a quote in the book where you really nail it. It's a loaded place filled with stories. Everything feels raw. And yet also, I think another element is because it's such a small place, it's also right on the edge of this great big open plains that is the outback, where there's such an unknown feeling to the outback. And there's kind of reference to this roadside butcher figure that also adds to the element of the unknown, what happened to these girls, where they disappeared. People have often, it kind of leans into that notion of people going into the outback and never being seen again. And, in 2001, we were literally just off the murder of Peter Falconio, in 2001 coming into 2005. And there's moments of this book that actually even reminded me of 1970s Australian Ozploitation films, and showing the outback, that environment, as a brutal landscape. Talk to me about setting this story here in this particular place, because I think it's such an important part of why this book works.
Yes, Darwin. As I mentioned, I was in Darwin in 2006, so a couple of years after this novel is set, and a lot more years after the Lisa Marie era was set. Darwin for me is, because I haven't been back there since 2006, I used those heightened memories of the place to inform it. So they do take on quite an unreal aspect in the book, definitely. And I think that works in its favor, because it's my memories of the place. And I think that helps with over-exaggerating some aspects than others. when I was there, Cyclone Tracy it lives in the minds of Australians. And although that we've had other natural disasters since then and before then, something about Cyclone Tracy sits with people. And I think it's because for over 12 hours, people didn't know that a city had been wiped off the map effectively. And I think that haunts people. And then, as you say, it's surrounded by such a vast landscape where people really do go missing, that we create these legends. And we see it, with Azaria Chamberlain and, I don't know, fun ones like Lassiter's Reef, but also Picnic at Hanging Rock and the Min Min Lights. We make up stories so that we can explain the unknown. And I think that's because we want a level of control, which we don't have. And even now, we all can remember a story that's being told out there where somebody has gone missing, a family or a single person has just never returned and will never return. That lives with us. And I think that, this book tries to play off of the elements of Darwin, the city aspects, and the remoteness, and the things that happen after Cyclone Tracy, and the things that happen. It's not necessarily about Cyclone Tracy or a serial killer. It's what happens after, and I think those are the interesting things to explore. Is the people left behind, and Cyclone Tracy left people behind, but also the bunker left people behind, and then you have this trauma of these people that are trying to come to grips with a world that has seemingly moved on. So it's a interesting place, and I was in my 20s when I went there, which is the ideal time to go to Darwin if you're passing through. So a lot of the places mentioned in there were from my own experiences. I will mention that when I was there, and if you've ever been to Darwin, I frequented the Vic a lot.
Yep.
Probably Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, a lot. And when I spoke to my mum at the time, and I said to her, I've been going to the Vic. She was a gold prospector at the time, back in the 70s and 80s, sorry. And she was staying in Darwin a lot. And she said, "Oh, you mean the Victoria?" And she'd been going to the Victoria when it was a public bar. And I like the idea, that's also in the novel, is that these places become different for each generation, but also the same. So there's the Vic and the Victoria, depending on the timeline. And that's different, but the same. And we think that we're different generations, but we're actually very, very similar.
It's a nice little touch that you put there. But let's start in 2004 in terms of these two timelines of this book. You split the story up into two parts. We start with the 30th anniversary of Tracy, but also the 30th anniversary of these four girls who are kind of viewed as these angels of Darwin, who there's kind of another mythical or mystical legend that has kind of been wrapped around them because people don't know what happened to them. They disappeared and were never ever seen again that night. And we start with Von. And Von is in a really interesting place. She kind of alluded to the fact that she hasn't moved on. And I think, and the big reason is because her mum, Sally, in this book, she had disappeared a few weeks before Tracy, but she is cast down by all of the families and other family members around who are kind of connected to the angels because she doesn't fit the idea of an angel. She doesn't fit that perfect description of the legend of these four mystical people who went disappearing because she was viewed in this outdated context of, she was a sex worker. She wasn't important and all of that sort of stuff. And Von is kind of in this situation where she's desperate to find out answers. She's desperate to get recognition for what happened to her mother. She needs closure in that regard. I just want to also just shout out Peter, who is an angel in his own right for kind of always also being there. But she feels like Von just feels like she has clung on to Darwin her whole life because she has no answers. She has no truth about or closure. Talk to me about Von and this kind of whole side to this story, because I think it also is a part of what happened that finds her in this situation 30 years later where she hasn't had a mum.
Yeah, she's 34 years old when we see her in the novel, and she wants her mother to be an angel, one of the missing, which is a very strange thing to want. And because before that, her case has had very little attention. In fact, it wasn't even reported missing she wasn't even reported missing at the time. And that's for other reasons, but it means that she's kind of lost. Whereas the angels are given a lot of attention. Every anniversary, they're put up on pedestals to say that these are what we lost, the innocence of a place, and these are the caricatures of the people, and they don't know very much about them. In fact, there's only one photo of Lisa Marie, and they put them up as the smart one, the sporty one, or the one that the blonde one. They don't know anything about them. And similar to Vaughn, she's trying to put a face to the name of the mother that she never had. So she's trying to get her recognition like the angels do. But I think that in doing so she's not necessarily asking the right questions at the same time. She's blaming her lack of information about her mother on the fact that her life isn't moving forward. And I think at the end, there's no real resolution. There's a resolution for Vaughn, but the next question she'll have to ask her after this novel is, has she taken the past with her? Because no matter how far you get, it will go with you. But yeah, she's a troubled but successful, and she never even asked a question about her mother until Peter, her friend, came and asked her about it and tried to force her into this investigation. And then from there, she started blaming the lack of knowledge about what happened to her mother on what was happening to her. And I think that, afterwards, it's more of a combining the angel stories with Sally's stories to get a better resolution for her.
Yeah, it's a hard position to find herself in, because you kind of get it in two hands, because the lack of answers is such a key problem here. And then it means that when this face comes back from the past, it throws everything wide open, both for the families of these five girls who are lost, and also for Vaughn. This person has been in the wilderness for 30 years, and the more we find out about this person, the more we find out about what actually happened to the five girls who disappeared. Let's talk about this other voice, which is, of course, Lisa Marie. 9 years old, as you say, and it's told from the adventures, the things that transpire in the bunker with these five people are told from her perspective of a child. And I'm so glad you did that, even though we don't sugarcoat. She is subjected to things that I wish no child would ever see, and it's so hard to kind of it's a balancing act to try and get her to really show you people what is happening there, but still keeping that sort of childhood innocence or childhood processing, because again, she's only 9 years old. Talk to me about Lisa Marie and this group that, in a weird way, also become a bit of a family in the end. They kind of merge together to try and find ways to get through this isolation and experience being trapped in this bunker in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, I think it had to be told from Lisa Marie's point of view, because with a child, there's an interpretation of what's going on that it doesn't lessen it, but it doesn't focus in on areas that would an older child or a teenager would. You need light where there's dark, and you need hope. And I think Lisa Marie gives that. Particularly with a child inside the bunker, the other women, I should say, they're 18, 19, is that they have someone to protect, and they need to protect. And even though Lisa Marie is, seemingly fine at times and then not fine at other times, she's still just a child. And that is, I think, important for them to have this person that they rally behind and something greater than themselves to protect. but it also gives a viewpoint that is different to the others. So with a child, you're never really sure what parts are exaggerated or which parts are truthful and which parts that they've completely fabricated. And I think that's why it's important with Lisa Marie, because not only does she provide a level of truth or a child's truth, but she also gives that innocent, what's the word I'm looking for?
Like innocent perspective, like that innocent sort
of, on what's happening, which if it was from any other character, I think it would be too internalized, and it would be something that you'd be very focused on many different things rather than the actual act of survival or ignoring the fact of survival. Like Lord of the Flies or even Yellow Jackets, it's a situation. It doesn't matter the situation. It matters the characters that you have that are reacting to that situation. So if you'd had a different person in there besides Brenda or Angie, they would have acted very differently again. And I think that was the important part for me to realize, is that it's not necessarily the situation, it's about how these particular characters react to the situation, which would be different to any other combination of people, or if they were at any other times of their lives.
Absolutely. And I actually want to ask, I have a question about those reactions, because being in this bunker, being in this place, the days all blend into one. The isolation kind of creeps up. There's an element to it that I think is so well achieved here. A ghost starts to help Lisa Marie that she can only see through the old view makers with the clicks that you could do. You used to have one of them. Sally Von's mother is on edge the whole time. She thinks Lisa Marie is out to get her, and there's a whole connection of two and two together in regards to how they found themselves here in the first place. Time slips away. Some of these chapters are just terrifying because they're on their own, they're isolated, and it's the loss of hope as well and how they deal with those situations. Miranda, no spoilers, but she's also suffered an injury as well. And they have to try and deal and manage with that injury, which leads to some white-knuckled moments. Talk to me about writing isolation, and also with that loss of time comes a decline of sanity, and how they try and manage this together, and then it also brings them together, it draws them apart. Talk to me about writing isolation, because the isolation in this book is palpable. You are feeling it. You are, again, I'm the reader. You have grabbed me and slapped me across the face with this, which is so tip of the hat.
Yeah, well, isolation is a key component for both timelines in different ways. I mean, you can be isolated and are surrounded by people, or physically in a dark bunker with no windows. And I think isolation in Lisa Marie's timeline, with the lack of windows, the darkness, the constant darkness, and the threat of impending death, that the only way for her to really survive is to create stories for herself, and to create stories for herself, but also to create a friend for herself as well. And in order to do that, that's her escape mechanism. Whereas, some of the older girls, they fall into like a kind of comatose, just withdrawing within themselves. Miranda is obviously injured as well, and so she's unconscious for a lot of it. But for me, it was about building that dread overall. So what can go wrong does go wrong, but it's how they deal with those situations at each turn that needs to be the highlight of those chapters. Believable as well, and something that you can say, yes, that I would definitely see that happening. And I think that was really important to me as well. But so it's not a all out everything, hope is lost. And even at the very end, hope isn't lost. It's never lost. But it's the way that each of the characters tries to cope with it. I mean, there's nothing worse, I don't think, than in thinking of effectively being buried alive, except being buried alive by yourself. So even though it's bad, they have each other, and that's a comfort in itself. Yeah. I love the conversations.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, there's no spoilers here in terms of the ending, but this ending stayed with me. We were kind of talking about it. I mean, I reread it last night, and I told you that I struggled to get to sleep last night. It's because I reread the ending, and I had to sit and process a lot. Both timelines come to they get their answers out there about truth, about isolation, about they come to a place, an ending place. And true to form, it is happy and it is sad. A twisted place. It's a place of truth. It's a demented, chilling dive into another reality. I actually don't even have a question here. They found a way. Both sides found a way to survive. And as sad as it was also very beautiful. I feel like that's the best way I can summarize it. I haven't even got a question. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, especially with Lisa Marie, she had to. She has the ultimate sacrifice, I think, because you have to. The questions that she's asking herself, or they're asking themselves in the bunker, are more fundamental. You know, they're about water, food, survival, and in order to do that, she has to. Without knowing it, obviously, because if you have any conscious thought of how each of your decisions add up at the end, you probably wouldn't make them. But without knowing it, she has to choose whether or not to fulfill her I don't know, inheritance or whatever, to become the monster. But yeah, I really tried to play up with the stories with Lisa Marie, because she lives in such a fantasy land. Even before the bunker, she is kind of alone. She's the youngest of two other older siblings, and she's alone a lot of the time. She uses a Viewmaster or a new Christmas present to see those stories come to life. One of them, usually they try to tell her a truth. So one was a story I actually took from Rink Rank. It's a story that was from a German fairy tale about falling through a cave and having to be the slave to a monster. And she only knows half the story when she goes into the bunker, and then she kind of manifests the rest of the story. She uses those kind of stories to help her get through, but also to tell herself the truth as well.
I will say, like, I know I'm aware that we're running out of time, but I have a great question to always finish off with this whenever talking about these books. And like, this is your first debut. This is your your first thriller. It's brilliant. I loved it. Someone who really enjoys thrillers, I loved it. And so I want to ask, what did writing Stay Buried teach you? This exercise of doing it, whether it be Jane the person, Jane the writer, whatever it may be.
I think it taught me that the more you know about writing, the less you know about writing.
That's so true.
You start off really confident, and then you dip a lot, because you realize how much you don't know and how much you'll never know, which is the even scarier part, I think, of the whole process. You have to have a certain amount of ego to write a book, but boy, is it hard to maintain that ego when you start to, when you learn more and more about the thing that you love to do. I think especially with this book, it gave me direction, and I think I've been looking for that purpose for a long time, and it definitely gave me that. In fact, so much so that I couldn't see myself doing anything else ever again. If somebody ever asked me, should I start writing, I would say, no, don't do it. Just take up running. It's a much healthier pursuit, and it's a better long-term goal than sitting in a room and sometimes in the dark, just thinking and writing, and it's not great for your health, and it's and you have to spend long periods of time just sitting down and trying to achieve perfection that's never there. So take up running. That's my
That's a great answer to that question. I mean, unfortunately, the problem is when you get bitten and you have an idea, then you're basically buggered in that case because then you have to sit down and write. Will you write? Will you write again?
Yes, I've got another book with HQ that I've got to submit soon, and so yeah, that will be along the same or darker bent, which is my way. So definitely keep going. Yeah, I've got a couple of stories that I'm working on, but yeah, I've got to deliver this one relatively soon. So that's my focus at the moment, is the next novel.
Well, I'm very, very excited to hear what comes next. And I will add, off the back of that small comment that you made about Von, it would be very interesting to revisit her if there is any of these stories do cover that, because by the sounds of, her, we won't talk spoilers. She has an ending in this story, but off the back of that, I do think her journey might not be over yet. Maybe there's another story in there somewhere. Just me listening to you and having literally fresh off this book. So maybe, who knows?
Or we could just leave her driving forever.
Hey everyone, Nick here. I'm excited to announce that I've launched a brand new book newsletter featuring book reviews, recommendations, latest news from the publishing world, opinion pieces, short stories, and more. One monthly newsletter, no spam, just the good book stuff. The sort of email you're glad shows up in your inbox. Sign up now for free, and for a small additional monthly fee, get early access to Date with the Debut episodes and exclusive content, including special extra episodes with our guests, Second Date, where they run another gauntlet of rapid-fire questions. Subscribe to my newsletter in the show notes below. We'll finish off this podcast with a rapid-fire part of the date. Yes, I know, we're at that point now where I give you a bunch of questions and you give me the first answer that comes to your head. Are you terrified, Jane?
Absolutely.
I don't think a single other author is ever coming into this being like, yes, let's do this, let's go. But I can promise that they'll be the right sort of questions. So first up, let's talk about reading habits, because obviously someone who writes a lot, you mentioned that you read a lot. What's your favorite book that you've read in the last 12 months?
Yeah, I had in the last 12 months, I read A Rather Haunted Life, the biography of Shirley Jackson. I think it's by Ruth Ware, I think. Mm-hmm. No, Ruth Franklin. And it's a biography of Shirley Jackson. And I read it off the back of Shirley Jackson's letters that were put together by her son. And I tell you, I was in a fever dream of Shirley Jackson. I swear I thought like her. I even wrote a number of short stories because I couldn't get her out of my head. Is that good of a biography that you really feel like you're walking in their skin for a while, which is like a rather disturbing place to be, but also an incredible thrill. So yeah, that was a great book.
I'll have to add it to my TBR because I am not familiar with that one. So another one to add to my massive TBR. What is your favorite debut novel that you've ever read?
Yeah, this is difficult. I love Geraldine Brooks's Year of Wonders. I thought that was an amazing debut. Obviously, you can't go past Frankenstein either. Oh, yes. But I really like, I love Julia Child's The Art of French Cooking as well. Nothing in there goes wrong. Everything is perfect. And also, Orange is Not the Only Fruit by Jeanette Winterson. That's also a great debut. But I have to say that I think a lot of novelists get better after their debut. Most novelists get better after their debut. I think of like Philip K. Dick and John Wyndham, even Joan Lindsay. Picnic at Hanging Rock wasn't her first. So yeah, I think novelists get better after their debut, generally speaking.
Or you can be, I think that's the natural progression, which is good because you're building into your craft. And then you have people like Harper Lee with To Kill a Mockingbird. And I'm like, you started with that? Bloody hell. So, yeah, I can feel like that.
You were paralyzed to write anything else.
I know. If there is a place in Darwin or the top end that you think people should go to get a sense of some of the many amazing stories that have come out of that environment, like a good place which has a great story to it, where would you recommend people go?
The cathedral that's mentioned in the novel, that's a real place, and it does hold a lot of plaques of the memorials and the anniversaries, and it holds a memorial window as well for those lost at sea during Tracy. That's a very old church for Australia, and it's as I mentioned in the first page of the novel, is that it survived World War II, and it survived lesser cyclones, but it never survived Cyclone Tracy except for the base of it, and it was redesigned later to not only hopefully withstand other cyclones, but also as a memorial to Cyclone Tracy. So yeah, definitely I think that's a great place to visit, but also the Vic, I've got to say as well, if you really want to go. I think they do 2 for 1s, so maybe they
can attest. It's pretty good.
Or something.
You mentioned in your bio that you like to travel the world. You've now settled in the Netherlands. How many countries have you been to?
I know I hate to travel, actually. Yeah, I hate to travel. I can't swim, and but you know what? You've got to keep saying yes to things, and yeah, and then you end up in weird and wonderful places like the Netherlands. So actually, I don't know how many countries. Actually, I thought I wanted to travel when I joined the Navy, but afterwards I didn't want to travel. I actually just want to stay in one place. But as it turns out, you keep, no matter what you try, you end up in different places.
It's true. Travel inevitably comes. Do you believe in ghosts?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think so. I actually have this, it started when I was a while ago. I don't know when, but I was in a share house, and I heard this knock on the door, and I woke up to hearing it, and I didn't know what it was, but I heard my name being called out, and I thought it was my wife now, who didn't live with me at the time, and I looked out the window to see if it was her, and I saw her, and I was like, oh, she must have had a fight with her housemate or something. So I went to open the door, and I opened the door, and nobody was in there, but I got this great sense that something had found me. And ever since then, that same thing happens. I eventually, after I move, because I move quite often, I'll get a knock on the door that I hear, and I'm compelled to open it, and I'll get this sense that something has found me again. And just the other night here in the Netherlands, I heard it again. So, but I didn't go down and open the stairs. I didn't go down the stairs and open the door this time because I was stopped. But I do think that's something. Sometimes things can follow you around.
Oh, that's interesting. Wow. Yeah. Pivoting away from completely different subject matter, do you have a favorite word?
Yeah, in the novel, I used I don't know what this says about me. I used makeshift and door a lot. So not window, which would I think be more of a uplifting thing, but door. And makeshift. So yeah, those are my most commonly used words currently.
So for listeners, could you explain what troll toast is, and have you ever tried it before?
Troll toast is the made up food stuff that I put into the novel. It's a Vegemite with hundreds and thousands. So it's something that one of the characters feeds called troll toast. I haven't had it, but I think it would sound really nice. Sweet and savory all at the same time. I'm not opposed to the idea at all. I love Vegemite, thick Vegemite, and I like fairy floss. So why not mash the two together? It's like mayonnaise and Vegemite, or avocado and Vegemite. It goes hand in hand.
I would be very curious to try that because it sounds to me like I don't know how I would react if I tried that because I'm just my savoury person. I love my cheese and Vegemite. That is my tick. So yeah. This is a question I've never actually asked before on the podcast, but I'm going to throw it here. What is on your TBR pile?
Oh, I'm looking across at it now. I've got The Killer Inside Me by Jim Thompson, and I've got Your Favorite Scary Movie by about the Scream Chronicles, and that's what I got. I'm reading something else. Oh, Save the Cat just has a writes horror as well, so that's another one I've got on the list. Oh, and I've got audiobooks going as well.
The eternal trouble. Oh, poor us. We've got to read books. But it sounds like an excellent TBR pile. And then my final question of the day of this podcast. Are you happy?
Mostly, I think. Mostly. I dabble. With the book, I'm very happy. I think I'm like anyone, ups and downs and peaks and troughs, especially with the creative process. It's either I'm doubting my ability or I'm going, this is not half bad. And those are the two extremes. But overall, yes, happy.
That's so true. And the amount of times I've said to myself, even when someone's, written something that someone else has gone, oh my God, this is amazing. Your normal reaction is, it's okay. That's all right. We can always find a way to do better. But
give me another 10 years.
I'm very, very happy today because I got to be introduced to a wonderful new voice in Australian thriller and psychological thrillers. And I'm very happy because I got to chat to her today. Thank you, Jane. It has been such a joy chatting to you about this book. For everyone listening, Stay Buried is published by HQ, which is an imprint of HarperCollins. You can also go and check out, we're literally about to go and record a second episode where I throw Jane down an even longer gauntlet of rapid fire questions called Second Date. And you can check that out now by signing up to my newsletter with links in the description. You can also get a copy of Stay Buried at, your local library, local bookstore, online, wherever you get it, it's available. Jane, thank you so much. I have absolutely loved chatting with you today and talking about this wonderful book.
Thank you. I mean, this didn't hurt at all, so I'm very happy.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Date with a Debut and for listening to the Words and Nerds channel. You can buy all books mentioned in today's episode down in the description box, and if you enjoyed the show, drop us a review, leave us 5 stars or a thumbs up wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to hear episodes when they drop, be sure to subscribe to Words and Nerds, or you can subscribe to Date with a Debut on Podbean to hear the latest episodes as they drop. This episode was edited and produced by myself, Nick Wasiliev. Additional production credits to Dani V from Words and Nerds, music by Sakura HZ, and thanks to the publishers and authors who make this show possible. This show is sponsored by Podpixels. Date with a Debut is a Words and Nerds and Breathe Art podcast co-production recorded and edited on the lands of the Awabakal Country.